Hello everyone. You might recall I had a great title slide on Wednesday. Still didn't pay off financially in the meantime though. So today we're gonna talk about DEC maps again. But of course we're talking still about the DEC FA map. Always when we say DEC map in our domain. So we'll start off with some essential history here. This one. Don't know if anybody of you actually knows this one. It's a very old one. This is the source of the DEC FA map. 1997. That's a quite long time ago, 18 years. The technique has matured in the meantime. Well, another nice thing to see is one more. In 1997, the game was really on in Vancouver. There was also this guy. You might know him. He's working in our domain. He tried to pull it off as well. He didn't make it. Sorry. But this paper is the one that is typically referred to. It's a nice review paper. I recommend you all to read it. Very nice overview of DEC maps and DEC FA maps. But the main point here is we've been using this DEC FA since 1997. I mean, for a young researcher like me, that's prehistory or something. So maybe we should reconsider, because you know, we're into Hardy and all right now, if you've been keeping up with the domain. And we're always talking about moving on, moving on. Tensor moved on, the DEC didn't come along. Okay, stop complaining about things, because there was actually some great value in there, and that's the absolute value color scheme. I love it, you all love it. You've been spoon-fed this. Red is left and right, green is front back, blue is top down. It works amazingly. I could also explain you what yellow is, or purple, or that grayish kind of cyan somewhere in the middle there, but you don't need it. Just read this, and the maps make sense. So I'll retain that, because I love it. For the rest, DEC times FA also works really well. Not because of DEC or FA, but because the times is easy to interpret. Just take your DEC map, that's the orientations, simply multiply, nothing more complex than that, and you have the DEC FA. Intuitive, if both original maps would have been intuitive. And that's where the issues start to arise. Let's start with the DEC component of it all. Here's a fiber ODF, two populations. They both look yellowish, greenish, reddish, I don't really know, but the eigenvector points left-right, so it's red. You get red. Nothing to do with the original populations. Here we have a crossing, red and green, but the red one is slightly larger, it dominates. You get exactly red, green one is ignored. And you slightly perturb these voxels, might get a crossing like this, suddenly it becomes green. Same thing in the other situation, green one dominates slightly, suddenly it becomes green, so it's also not very stable. Problem 2, it's actually a little bit problem 1.5. So you remember these guys, they might be neighboring voxels because they're quite similar, but the eigenvectors, completely different. You get this, there's an edge in between. Shouldn't be an edge, the FODs are quite continuous in that area. Same thing here, these guys could also be neighbors, very similar, but we get an edge. It's quite, well, distracting, it might be misleading, it might be hiding pathology or introducing fake pathology, you don't want that. Problems 1 and 2 in practice, if you don't believe me, here's the image, you love it, you believe it, then you focus on this region, you see a smudge of purplish things in there, look closer, you get an FOD continuum there, yet suddenly there's an edge in between. And does this Bordeaux color really make sense given these slopes? I don't think so. And then here another slice. There, you always look at it at this level, because you use these areas for your very FOD studies, because they contain the crossings and you want to show them off. So you overlay these things on your DEC map, no continuum to speak of. Like suddenly here there's blue, and there's a green area and a red one. It's all just one continuum. Like some pixels are basically purely ignored. Problem 3 is actually with the FA component. So here's the DEC FA. You know this region looks a bit smudgy, but also a bit darker. Is it really darker? Let's check the FA. Yes, it is. Doesn't make sense. There's just as much axon volume in there. It's just the structure that modifies it. It's not intuitive. So I came up with an FOD-based DEC. And it's a big formula, but it's pretty easy. I will integrate over the entire spherical domain, integrate all the colors weighted by the FOD amplitude. Then just normalize the thing so I have a nicely normalized color vector again. To do this in practice, because it's difficult with this continuous integral, I just do it in a discrete sense. But it works out like in seconds, so pretty easy. And then we'll get our actual contrast, so the DEC times not the FA, but the FOD integral itself. And that's actually our total voxel-wise AFD, which you might know as apparent fiber density, as a better and more concrete meaning than the FA. Okay, so I expanded this a little bit, expanded this one, got this thing. You might think, if we're gonna weight it by the FOD integral anyway, why wouldn't we just have used that one? Basically just keep this one. Why are we normalizing and reweighting? Well, it's a bit tricky. If you know your maths quite well, you know that this is the triangle inequality, and these things are not necessarily equal at all. So we'll just keep it at this. This one is the one we're going to use. Okay, at this point, we had a few problems. Let's see what we can do about them. You know, these two chaps, there used to be an edge, no contrast, edge is gone. And these colors actually match the colors of the lobes. It's more intuitive. They match the actual populations that are in there. These two chaps, an edge in between, not anymore. We get now an average color, not the color of a fake average direction. Something very different if you think about it. At this point, I'll give you some details about the data that we used. So simple single subject data. It's multi-shell, normal resolution. Multi-shell is pretty good in this case. So we do the multi-shell, multi-tissue CSD to get our FODs. And where we used to have the tensor-based DEC times the FA, we now get the FOD-based DEC times the total AFD, which becomes this map. Our problems can get solved as well. We used to have the issue in this region. Now we can fix it. It's nice average yellow there, representing the continuum, because it's all crossings in this region. We used to have problems here, like red, blue, green, and crisp edges in between. Shouldn't be there. Now we have a nice continuum. Like it's still, well, reddish, but there's also green in, so you get a bit of yellow, and so on. You get a nice continuum. These problems, also pretty easy to solve, the intensity-wise problems. We just take the FOD integral, it's gone. And we have the yellow as well. It's not as offensive as it used to be. Okay, some other results. I'll quickly browse through these. It's just always the same format. Old map, new map. You can compare, you can judge whether you like the new one. So here, I guess, what to look at, these voxels again in the crossing. Here's a continuum, for instance. What else? Oh yeah, these ventricles, a bit noisy. Thalamus may be difficult to separate. This is actually mostly thanks to the multi-shell, multi-tissue CSD. But it does show off in this map if you use that FOD's information. Here's a coronal slice, what to look for. Let's see, maybe here. So here the corpus callosum seems to be broken up. Here they're still purple, signifying the crossings. Same thing here, for instance here, a few red voxels. What's that? No, there's an actual continuum there. Also the pons maybe. Pons is a bit broken up here, there, a bit smudgy. Here we have an actual continuous pons, because it's full of white matter there. Why should it be broken up? Other coronal slice, this one is pretty easy. Just check the cerebellum. You know what the FA does, very low. Here we still have an actual cerebellum. Same thing here, look for the cerebellum, it's there. Yeah, this one is also pretty easy. Corpus callosum is broken, and here it's fixed. And okay, cerebellum is in there as well. So next time, if you underlay or overlay your FODs basically on a map, don't make it the DEC FA, make it a map that is actually calculated out of those FODs. And because it's so smooth, you can nicely interpolate it as well. So to conclude, we introduced a novel FOD-based DEC map. We built on what was already there, and we love it. And rather than the color of a single average direction that comes out of the tensor, we now use the weighted average color of all orientations. Gives a different contrast, as you saw. This solved our main issues of misleading DEC use for individual voxels, as well as edges that appear in the overall map. Finally, for the actual intensity, we propose to use the FOD's total integral, which is AFD, fixes the lower intensity in the crossings, provides a better white matter outline when using multi-cell CSD. Single cell, single tissue CSD, you can always ask me, looks a little bit different since the gray matter is also in the AFD then. And when you finally also acquire a T1 weighted image, you can do this one. Very nice, but I already told it on Wednesday, so I will not repeat it. Go and read the abstract. I thank you for listening. Keep track of my research on ResearchGate, and it will be all available in MRTrix 3 soon too. Thank you.